Welcome to Clay Mastermind with Don Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab, your ultimate podcast for mastering the mental game of clay shooting and gaining exclusive insights from the top minds in the industry. Join us as we dive into the strategies of elite athletes, uncover the secrets to peak performance, and share powerful techniques to enhance your shooting skills. Plus, get behind-the-scenes access to the leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of the clay shooting industry. Get ready to elevate your game, sharpen your focus, and gain insider knowledge from the best in the business. Let's get started. Here's your host, Don Grant.
Hey folks, this is Dawn Grant. Welcome to Clay Mastermind, mental excellence and industry insights. I appreciate you following and I appreciate all your great feedback. Definitely be sure to listen to all Clay Lab's great stuff. JP's doing an amazing job, not only with his videography, but also with creating a portal for clay shooters. So I'm happy to be a part of that. And I'm excited to have Ed Prechel here with me today. And many of you know him from Make a Break, but the man goes way beyond Make a Break. There's so much more to what Ed's been doing and what he's up to. And I'm excited to not only learn more myself, but, for him to share all that with you. So thanks for being here, Ed.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Don.
Yeah. So can you give a really quick summary here at the front end, and then we'll dive in deeper. So, who is Ed?
Who is Ed? Who is Ed? That's a good question. But it sounds so encompassing. You know what I mean? Ed's a lot of things in regard to Top Gun Shooting Sports and the shooting world. Ed is the owner of Top Gun Shooting Sports. I started the company originally with a close friend back in 1994, and we started by doing 5-stand. But then have gone on. The friend stayed in for just a year is all. And then I was on my own. And eventually my family joined me. I've had numerous employees over the 32 years or something of doing this. And my children, all three, have or are working with me, I guess is the way I would describe it, for a number of years. The older two, Mackenzie, she goes by Kinsey, and Owen, started already when they were, honestly, Kinsey, I think, was a month old when she went on the road for the first time. So
Wow.
The first two kids were on the road with us. I had a sister that nannied for us a little bit, or they would stay home with my parents some, but they were on the road a ton. I want to say by the time they were 7, they wanted to throw 5-stand, or they'd come along and help out a little bit. You know what I mean? So
Right.
But Kinsey and Owen, by the time they were 10 or 11, we'd have them running 5-stand games or helping us make a break or doing, so they did a bunch. And so Owen still, he runs the second trailer now, so he's in it full time. My older daughter is married and just has a daughter of her own, her and her husband, and she's just turning 1 this coming Sunday, I think it is, the 10th, August 10th. And so, so she doesn't do any shoots anymore. But my youngest daughter, Ella, who turned 13 last October, has joined me this summer, and she's been on the road and has been learning to run the games, Make a Break specifically, but she's done a great job. It's been a lot of fun to see her. She's been along in the past, but she's never had to work. She's been the baby of the family, of course,
right.
So she's had it easier, but this was the year I decided it was time for her to step up and just to learn a good work ethic, right? You know what I mean? To be able to persevere when it's hot and when the days are long, and to get in that position where you understand what it's like to have something demanded of you and you have to see it through. So I've been very proud of her. She started the end of May when we did the Shooters Championship, and then she's been with me through up until this week. She's with some friends this week. I sent her back home. We're only 2 hours from home here in Wisconsin now this week. But the last few weeks, the Ohio State last week, Pennsylvania State the week before, she actually was running the game all by herself. She had to do sound and video stuff for the show for me. She did the job. I was really proud of her.
That is awesome. I love it. Now I'm going to have to spy and just see, because that's cool. I love family businesses and all that. And that's what a great age that she's out there already doing and running it in that respect.
Yep. No, it's been really fun. It's fun to see her. And she's always been kind of shy too. So to have to talk to people, right? She's doing the sign up, running the game, taking the money, making change. So She's
Oh
really
my
grown up.
gosh,
I
I'd
can
love to
really just
see
see the
that.
change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's such a great thing. My son works for me, and he's been working for me at my shotgun club since he OJT. So he was a senior in high school and did part time, work at the club. And it
Sure.
started out with just the typical like mowing the lawn and edging and all that, and then
Yeah.
a little bit later it was picking up holes and throwing away garbage and on top of the lawn. And then a little bit later, it was trap repair and then setting targets. And now he's my outdoor course manager. And I just love it. I love that I've been able to see so closely, like him growing up and maturing. But a big, big thing was his confidence growing,
Right.
that was
Yeah.
the biggest transformation. And that feeling that he has now of understanding and knowing and taking initiative and having confidence when he's
Yeah.
answering a question or talking to a customer or solving a problem. Like, I love it. All right, folks, we'll be right back after a sponsored segment. Are you missing Clays and wondering why? ShotCam can help. It's a lightweight camera that attaches under your barrel to record every shot, with a red dot showing where your barrel was pointed at the moment of truth. Just turn it on, it automatically saves everything. Instantly replay the videos on your phone, and they are clear enough to even see the pellets. I've used ShotCam frequently at my shotgun club. Not only has it been used in instruction time, but as a little different twist, I use it for making my social media content, because there's nothing like seeing that target break in the air and having a really great camera that does that. Super excited to have them on board here. Get your ShotCam at shotcam.com with the code TheClayLab. That's just one word and you get 10% off. So the average shooter improves 10% in their first 30 days of using the camera. So that ShotCam, spelled SHOT, then KAM. So spell it with a K.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
fabulous. It really is. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got to experience that with all three of the kids, doing that same thing. So it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. So going back, well, let's go way back. Where did you grow up, and were you into shotgun shooting? What was going on in your youthfulness?
So in my youthfulness, I've always had an interest in shooting and guns, and my dad was involved in hunting. When I was young, I remember him going hunting already when I was little. He used to reload shells, and he claimed that I don't remember the exact age, but somewhere under the age of 2, he was reloading shotgun shells. And he said, I just took one off the press and handed it to you. And he said, you sat there and stared at it like you were just mesmerized. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just had
Yeah.
some meaning, anyway. So I was going to say, to this day, one of my passions is collecting old shotgun shell boxes and any paper shot shells. Like I like to collect, I like to reload, the federal papers and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
just kind of that nostalgia and I don't know, there's a beauty to it. You know what I mean? The artwork and
Yes.
all that goes with that. Anyways, from a young age, I was interested in shooting, and then grew up, always wanting to hunt and shoot guns and all of that, and did a lot of that. We grew up. I have a younger brother and 2 younger sisters, and grew up in the country. We lived on a 2.5 acre parcel or whatever, but we were in the middle of southern Minnesota farmland. My dad's brother got the farm. All my
Okay.
friends in school, close friends, all lived on dairy farms pretty much. And so we were always shooting sparrows or starlings or pigeons, or you know what I mean, doing something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I was a little older, probably I suppose around 9 or 10. I don't know. My dad had a box of clay pigeons in the basement, but it wasn't the box like clay pigeons come in. It was just a cardboard box, right? And I'm guessing that he had gotten them. They maybe picked them up at a gun club or something, because they were all different colors and brands. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he had the hand thrower, that the old wooden handle, and then you'd cock the thing back, put a target in it, and throw it. And so for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I guess I honestly don't remember what initiated my interest in clay targets or throwing clay targets, but I just remember just really enjoying. I'd go out in the front yard. There's a field right in front of our house there, and it'd be soybeans or cornfield alternating each year, But I'd stand in the front yard. I'd take 5 targets out with me, and I'd throw the 5 targets. And my goal was to see how many rows into the field, into the headland, I could throw the targets. So
Okay.
this would be in the fall, you know what I mean? Like hunting season was coming, hunting was in the air, anyways. And I'd go throw those targets, and I'd go pick them up, try and find them again, and I'd throw them till all 5 of them were broke. And I mean, that was my own personal entertainment. after
Right.
school. I just remember doing that and just I really enjoyed it. And my big thing was I always wanted my dad to come and shoot. So he'd get home from work, maybe after 5 o'clock, 5:30, something like that. And I'd beg him to just get his gun and just shoot at a couple of the targets I'd throw. He was always too tired or too busy. And so,
Right, right, right.
so the neighbors, we had neighbors that were cousins actually, kind of right behind us. And their older son was probably about, I want to say 4 or 5 years older than me. And so he'd have his friends and they'd shoot clay targets in the backyard. And every once in a while, his friends couldn't make it or whatever, and he'd call and ask if I wanted to throw for him. You know what I mean? I felt like I was being called up to the major leagues. So
Nice.
I,
Yes.
I'd go over and throw targets, and like I say again, I don't know what really spurred it, but I was just always fascinated and enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and always looking for somebody to shoot. You know what I mean? So
That's
it's funny how it's
something.
gone on to be, yeah, I'm still throwing clay targets and I'm still
Right.
begging people to come and shoot.
Isn't
So,
that something? That is so cool.
yeah.
Wow. All right. So,
So
you
the
fast forward. Yep.
Yep, that's kind of how it started, I guess. And then I mean, did like I enjoyed clay target shooting as I got older and had friends over and stuff. We would have our fall shoots, we called it. We'd start in the end of August, kind of. We'd have our first shoot, and then 2 weeks later was the second shoot, and then the weekend before duck season, 2 weeks following that. So each 2 weeks, we had 3 shoots in the fall. All my friends would come. It was always a big deal, you know what I mean? And of course, we just had one of those throwers that you stand on the board and pull the rope, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but it was our tradition, I guess you could say. I started probably when I was 12 years old or so, and it was something we did, I don't know, up and until the point I was probably around 20 or so, I guess, you know what I mean? But we
Yeah.
did it for quite a few years, and just like I say, it was always a big deal shooting clay targets. It's just it's almost like it's always been a part of an interest of mine and something I enjoyed anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think that is so fascinating. I like to hear people's stories and to try, to see how things tie together. But yours,
yeah.
that's pretty neat. And you're still loving it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I truly do. Yeah, I mean, for interesting how I got into doing it professionally, but the fact that yeah, that I've been doing it for 32 years and I'm passionate about it. I guess, I mean, ultimately, my dream is to see this become a professional sport. To be able to go into a sports bar and they've got whatever 30 screens up there and actually see clay target shooting on there like you'd see baseball or soccer or
Right.
football or something. You know what I mean? To me, that would be
Well, they tried for a little bit, right?
yeah, I've been involved in a number of efforts personally to get there too, and
Okay.
still am. So,
Yeah. Okay. Got
but
you.
that's the goal, I guess you would say, or that's what I'm always striving toward or working toward is
Nice.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So you said there's an interesting story of what got you involved with, I imagine, the Top Gun, like that was when you
that's right.
started. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happened that got that, excuse me,
So
got that going?
basically, we did our fall shoots and that stuff, and I did again involved in a lot of hunting and stuff, but I was also involved in the firearm safety training program back home through the Department of Natural Resources. So I was a volunteer instructor and did that for 10 years. And then one of the guys that was involved, there was a point in time where they came out with a advanced hunter education program. And it was
Yeah.
like, I want to say maybe 6 sessions or something, maybe 2 or 3 hours in the evening for 6 weeks, if I remember right. And I was involved in that for about 5 years as an instructor. We did shotgun ballistics, steel shot stuff, waterfowl section, and then hunter ethics were the sections that I was kind of the guest speaker for. And so I would go to all different classes in Minnesota, you know what I mean, to different groups and
Right.
teach those specific parts of that class, again, at a volunteer level. And so what I found, the friend and I, Chuck that I mentioned earlier, Charles Berry, he and I were instructors. We did that together, and we just found there was a real interest in for people to learn how to shoot shotguns better. They wanted to know, when you start talking about steel shot ballistics and patterns and hitting targets, you know what I mean? There was just a lot that didn't know much about any of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to, at that time, we were really big into videoing our hunting too. Like clay target, we still shot a ton of clay targets. Just we never went to a club really. I was going to say it wasn't until I was involved in Minnesota Waterfowl Association that I shot my first sporting clays it was Charlie's Hunt Club in Benson, Minnesota. Was the first time I ever shot that. And a round of sporting clays there was 25 targets, if you can imagine. So
Okay.
this would have been back in probably 92, somewhere in there, 1992. And I had the club record. I shot a 25 straight. Nobody had ever done that at that point, anyways. And so I was
Oh,
on the
wow.
plaque. Yeah. Anyway, and so I had some success in that. And then through meetings with Minnesota Waterfowl Association, we were at Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club and some other clubs in the state of Minnesota. And they would always tie sporting clay shooting into that. And so I shot some and enjoyed it. So Chuck and I also, we filmed these hunts, and then we decided to do our own kind of instructional class, I guess you would say. And then we tied the video component into it. We would film the people shooting. We'd have a video camera facing them so you could see when they'd pick their head up off the stock, for example, or
Okay, yeah.
different things along those lines. And then we'd have a camera filming from behind, and we would film that image. At that time, we had a camera, you could film it in a negative image, right? And so,
Oh,
especially on an overcast day, when you'd have the targets in the sky, the shot pellets, you could literally, when you'd go frame by frame on the film, you could see the shot come out the gun, you could see the pattern open, you could literally count pellets at some point on the frames, you know what I mean, when the pattern was out there further. And so you could see exactly where people were shooting. So now I could correlate for you when we were working with you that notice here how this camera shows you picking your head up, and now see how you're shooting over the targets with this camera. You know
yeah.
what I mean? You're consistently high, and it's because of this reason or this technique or this
Nice.
part of your form. You know what I mean? And so we did
Hmm.
that kind of on our own and had some success in that. And then at some point, and I don't remember, I suppose it would have been 93, honestly. We were at the Advanced Hunter Education the program, the DNR in Minnesota would put on a weekend of seminars for the instructors. And it would always be
Hmm.
typically at a hunt club or something. And that particular year, we went to that. And then in the evening, they would have shooting, fun for the instructors. And so they would have archery and rifle stuff and shotguns. And so of course we shot in the sporting clays thing, and I won it. And so they made up this rule that year that anybody who won the different disciplines was in charge of putting on that discipline's event at the next year's outing. And it turned out the next year's outing
Oh,
was going to be at Camp Ripley in Minnesota there. So the Army base or whatever, and they didn't have any sporting clays anything there. So I was charged with basically bringing sporting clays to Camp Ripley the next year. And again, through a series of events, at that point, a friend had bought a sporting clays magazine on the newsstand, and I didn't know anything about NSCA or real,
eh,
official sporting clays at
okay.
all at that time. So
Uh,
this would again have been in '93. And the other friend, Chuck, that I mentioned, was paging through it and came across the ad for 5 stand sporting clays with Raymond Foreman, the bird brain system. And Chuck showed it to me.
okay.
He said, "Here's your deal right here." He said, "Call this guy up. We'll just get. They must have a mobile one of these. You know what I mean? We could bring it in, and that'll solve the problem. So we reached out to Ray Foreman, and it turned out there weren't any mobile units at that time.
Right.
And he
Right.
said, if you're looking for a business opportunity, not that we were, I guess, at that time, but so we
Right.
put in for the package of information, and he sent it. This would have been in the fall, like I say, probably of '93, late summer, early fall. And then we got the information, and I want to say for 6 traps, the computer system, I want to say it was right around 25 or $26,000. And so, I mean, at that time, imagine we're like 24, 25 years old, Chuck and I, and so didn't have a great deal of wealth behind us. And we thought it was pretty
Right.
hilarious, honestly. 25 grand. Yeah, we're going to dive right into this. And so we hunted. I think we hunted 7 states that fall. And so in the evenings we'd be talking about this. You know what I mean? It started out, it was kind of a joke, and pretty soon we got more and more serious about it. And could we really make it work? And honestly, that all went from the stage of talking about it to setting goals to accomplish it. And literally by that April, that next spring, we had our first bird brain 5 stand system, and we're doing our first event at our home club in Waseca, Minnesota.
You guys got the money for it.
Yeah, we did. We each put in money, and then I got my parents and my grandparents to help get the rest. So
Nice.
that was how we came up with it, anyways. And that was the kickoff of Top Gun Shooting Sports. So again,
Wow.
yeah, April of '94 is when we got started.
And you would travel around with the 5 stand set up.
Yep. So back then, a lot of people didn't even know what 5 stand was. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
ways back, obviously. And so I remember before we got the equipment, even in the spring, there a lot of the local, there's Allman's Sporting Goods near us is a big sporting good dealer or whatever. But any of these in the spring, there would be kind of trap club meetings or whatever, you know what I mean, where these groups are getting together,
Mm-hmm.
planning the season and stuff. And so I would go to those, and I had a little video presentation I had put together about five stand, and I would explain what it was and basically trying to solicit to see if any clubs were interested in having us come for. Typically all of them had some sort of one day event, you know what I mean, that was the
Mm-hmm.
end of their trap season or something where they were having grilling out and having fun, doing something
Oh,
other than just
right.
shooting trap. So advertised to those groups, and I just remember kind of the irony of it that I'd never shot five stand either at that time. You know what I mean? I'd read all the articles and knew all about it, but I'd never done it either. And so trying to explain it to people, and I just remember at one of those things, a guy came up and he's like, yeah, he said, I was out in California. He said they had that system at a club I was at. He said I shot the flurry and he said it's so much fun. How did you, and I'm trying to pretend like I really knew what I was talking about, you know what I mean? But here's a guy who actually had done it, you know what I mean? So it
Right.
was it was funny anyway. But made our way through it. Like I say, our first event was just at the local club, and then I want to say we did a league at our home sportsman's club on Wednesdays. So it was just they had the space basically, but it was a two trap club, and it had kind of died out. They didn't really have any shooters even there at that time, and so we resurrected the club, I guess you would say, in a lot of ways, and got that league going on Wednesday nights. And then, if memory serves me right, keep in mind it's been 31 years ago or something. It
Right.
was we did 30. I know it's I think six. I think we had six events beside our league for our first year of success anyway. And we did some shoots at some of the. I think we worked for Horse and Hunt Club and the Caribou Gun Club and some of the bigger clubs in Minnesota. I just remember like it seemed like we were at the Minnesota State Shoot maybe that year in 1994. It was 2 days back then, and I think they had a big turnout somewhere in the 70s, if memory serves me right. You know what I mean? 78 or 79 shooters, and
Right.
that was a big deal back then. So anyway, and I think we were in New Pioneer Gun Club in Iowa, and then there was, I don't remember the name. We did one other club in Wisconsin. And so I never imagined us really getting out of that three-state area. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa is kind
Hmm.
of where I figured we would spend most of our time. And as things turned out, my friend Chuck took another job. He worked in the food industry as a production supervisor, and so he took a job in Wisconsin. And so he wished me well and went on his way. And so I told him I worked at Birdseye in Waseca at that time as a production supervisor, and I said I'm going to quit my job and take this on full time. You know what I mean? I said the only way I'm ever going to make it, or make something of it, is if I go in all the way. You know what I mean? I can't part time it. So that coming April of '95, I quit what I was doing, and at that point I had leagues set up in my hometown and then two other towns 40 miles away,
And
both
you were
east and
like
west.
mid to late 20s at this point.
Yeah, I was probably 26 or so, somewhere in there at that
Gee
point. Yeah.
whiz, that's awesome.
So, and then started booking up the weekend. So the biggest challenge was getting the jobs. So at that time, Black's Wing and Clays was kind of the Bible of the shooting world. It was the directory of all the clubs throughout the United States and stuff. And I remember getting a copy of that. And then that first year, Chuck and I cold calling all these clubs, trying to get in. And our
Right.
our success rate at that point was 1 in 10. For every 10 clubs we'd call, we'd get booked for one,
Not too
and we
bad, though.
hated it. We hated the cold calls. I mean, the rejection, you know what I mean, just the whole trying to get
Yeah.
the job and explain what it was we did and all the rest of it. And so it turned out at that time, the gal that I was dating that would later become my wife, she was out in Denver and she was doing selling life insurance and mutual fund stuff. And so I'd gone out to see her over Christmas break. This would have been the winter Christmas of '94. And so I was talking to her about the cold call thing and how much we hated it. Well, she did cold calls every day. And she said, "Well, did you have a script? Did you guys make a script?" I'm like, "What script? What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, your script. So you know what you're going to say when you call these guys." And I'm like, "No, we just kind of wing it." You know what I mean? And she said, "Then you
Right.
got to have your rebuttals." I mean, what do you mean? Well, she said, "When they say no, do a lot of them say the same reasons for saying no?" And well, yeah, now that you
Right.
mention it, you know what I mean? She said, "Well, you write those down and then you write your rebuttal to those." You know what I mean? So she taught me how to do the script. And literally, while I was out there with her, I was out there for about 3 weeks. And so I started calling clubs for the '95 season would be, and my success rate went from 1 to 10 to 7 out of 10. And so in no
No
time, I had
way. That's awesome.
It was it was a lot of fun, honestly. It changed the whole dynamic of that cold calling experience. And so I went from
Wow.
having the one system booked up, and then the other friend that had originally found the Sporting Clays magazine at the newsstand, he had always felt left out, that he wasn't included in the whole business thing. And so I had enough people now with my success rate in booking that uh, I was having to say no because the dates that they were interested in I already had booked. So Brian said,
Right.
you know what? How about if I buy another five stand, and then I'll just work as a subcontractor under you? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So 95, then the spring of, he bought a second five stand, and then I booked him
Wow.
under me. We worked together, and that went on for, I want to say, about 3 years. And again, I told you I thought I'd never get out of really a three-state area, but 95, I think we did the Michigan State shoot, and then it would just spread after that. 96, we did the World International, they called it the World International Five Stand Championship. So back then I told you that Raymond had created five stand. His vision or version of five stand was that it wouldn't have a menu. So you didn't know where the targets were coming from. They had a horn that would sound when the doubles would be thrown. So for example, if we're playing the level 3 where you have a single and two pair, when
Right.
you would call pull, you didn't know what you were going to get, if it was going to be your single or if it was going to be a double. But when you'd call pull, if the horn sounded, you knew you had two targets. So you had to spot the two targets, make a decision what order to shoot them, etc. And so they had
Wow.
the championship for that was down in Missouri. Trying to think, it was at Ralph Gates at the time, a Cedar Valley Rod and Gun Club down in Missouri. And so we did that championship there. I did the Kansas State shoot, I think, out in Western Kansas somewhere, like just in no time. Like I say, we were going to these other states, and then you'd meet people from further away there, of course. And the next thing, you know what I mean, the following year I was in Indiana and Ohio, and in no time, I want to say by 1998, 1997 even, I was out in New Jersey. I worked for M&M for the first time. Like, we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time anyway. So it was amazing how quickly
Hmm.
it spread. So the other challenge that I had was to make it a year-round job. So of course, being from Minnesota, kind of,
Hmm.
I would start my leagues and stuff the first week of April and then wrap that up the end of September. But there was the challenge of what do you do from the end of September till the 1st of April, right? And so
Yes.
I ended up making contact with a club down in Arizona. I thought that would be the way to go if I can go down south somewhere. And so there were three clubs at that time in the valley. There was Phoenix Trap and Skeet, Red Mountain Trap and Skeet, and then Ben Avery Clay Targets. And
Okay.
so I saw that it said that I think all of them maybe showed that they had a five stand. The Ben Avery was the only place with a Sporting Clays course. And I thought, well, maybe, it almost seemed like there was one of them. Maybe Ben Avery didn't list a five stand by chance. And I just thought, well, that'll be the one I
Right.
want to try and get in at. And so I thought, but I'll call Phoenix Trap and Skeet and just see how popular five stand is down there. You know what I mean? Are they
Right.
throwing a lot? And so I called them up, and the manager there said, "No, we don't have a five stand anymore." He said, "We kind of had a cobbled together thing, you know what I mean, with some hand traps and a couple of automatics, but," he said, "we haven't had that for a couple of years." He said, "If you're interested, we'd love to have you come down and set up though for the winter." You know what I mean? And so we worked out a split
Nice.
basically. And the next thing I know, I'm packed up and headed for Phoenix, Arizona. So that kind of kicked it off. I ended up doing four winters in Arizona, I guess. And that took us up to 2000. And toward the tail end of that, Lindsay was born, and 99 Owen was born. By 2000, it had just gotten to be too much to have two little kids. Basically, you're at a trap club, you know what I mean, living out of a camper.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
got to be a challenge to do that. So at that point, I stopped going down there and just found work around home anyways for the winter. As
Right.
and then as, of course, as the business at that time, I mean, as it turned out, in God's timing, it was perfect. Sporting Clays was growing immensely, you know what I mean, through that whole time. Like every year we were adding more machines and getting a bigger trailer, and just, you know what I mean, we just kept growing. In fact, after that first winter in Phoenix, I bought the third five stand and actually left it there, worked out a deal with the club that they ran it while I was gone. And so
Oh,
that stayed
wow.
down there for a couple of years. And then, and when we got the next big trailer, I guess I took the machines out of there and had them on the road and stuff. So anyways, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So then it evolves eventually. Well,
Yeah.
wait, do you still have a traveling 5 stand as part of Top Gun?
So we still offer that for clubs. Basically, we do anything and everything. So at that time, kind of our model was that we didn't just do 5 stand, but we had the operators.
Right.
Early on in the 90s, late 90s and stuff, we got tied into the U.S. Open thing probably in 97, if I'm not mistaken, we or so. I'm just trying to think. Whenever it was down in Forsyth at the Meadows was the first open I was at. So maybe that was 98. And then out in Montana, 99. And kind of for a number of years, we would run the 4 or 5 stand layout for the US Open.
Mm.
And just at a lot of events, we would, they would have 1 or 2 5 stands, and we would always run those. And then after 97, make a break as well. So we had the operators and then the games, and then we would still have machines that would be out on the course, rental traps we call them, that would be out on other events as well. So we
Uh-huh.
kind of did it all, but our niche more or less was to have the manpower to run the games
Right.
as well as setting them and all that. So that's kind of where we've been. And so we still do that. We don't do it near as much. Make a break obviously has morphed into way more of a show of a, you know what I mean? There's just way more to it now with the sound and video and all the stuff that we've got there. So the setting up of it is a lot more intense. It used to take 4 hours to set it up. I mean, one person could set it up in 4 hours. Now one person, it's an 8 hour job at least. You know what I mean? Maybe even a little longer.
Well, how did you end up even having Make a Break? So how did that come
So what
about?
because of the relationship with Ray Foreman in the 5 stand and the
Mhm.
Bird Brain. So when he introduced that, the tail end of 96, they did their debut event at South Padre Island. And so then in 97, I mean, obviously he talked to us about running it. And so I want to say I kicked it off in 97 at Ben Avery. So ended up working at all three of those clubs that I mentioned in the Valley in
Mm.
Phoenix there. So Phoenix Trap and Skeet, I
Okay.
did 2 years at. I did Red Mountain for a year, and I was at Ben Avery for a year. And so 97 season, I was at fall, yeah, it would have been the fall of 97 into 98. I was at Ben Avery. And we had the make a break set up there that winter. And then I traveled with it all that summer. Was the first that we actually had it on the road. And so up until that point, it mostly had been shot. Raymond had won the Game of the Year or something award through National Shooting Sports Foundation.
Mhm.
The NSSF had gotten behind it, and they paid to film, I want to say either 4 or 6 events. And so Raymond had uh, got to work with Dan Carlisle and Scott Robertson, and they came up with the Pro Challenge name for the series of the events, and the game they played then was Make a Break. So NSSF paid for the filming then of these events. They had kind of a tour that summer. That would have been 97. And then they did broadcast a number of those on ESPN. They bought the airtime on ESPN to have them on there.
Nice.
And so that kind of kicked it off. But other than those events, it wasn't something that you could readily find. You know what I mean? So when we went on the road with it, then kind of as I rethink that, it would have been the end of 97 into the summer of 98 was the first we were traveling with it. And so
Mhm.
people loved it. I mean, some people had been at those events and played it, and some of them, of course, had seen it on the ESPN broadcast. But we were the first, I guess, you know, uh, to actually be taking it around. And so it was at all the events we were at, state shoots and regional shoots and that sort of thing. So, like I say, it really took off.
Right. Okay.
But
Well, that's a lot. First of all, that's a lot of years of traveling and being on the road.
The lines are starting to show on my face.
That is
But
a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah.
Holy. And
So,
from the get-go, your wife would go with you, it sounds like,
yeah,
until
yeah.
the
We basically,
kids. Mhm.
yeah. Well, yeah. I was going to say at the beginning, before we had kids, Roberta and I were traveling doing the shooting events. In fact, take a step back, so the friend Brian that had been involved for I want to say about 3 years, he was a banker, is what his real occupation was, a loan officer. And the bank that he was working at, so as we started doing these bigger events, it used to be back in the late 90s, a big shoot was Saturday and Sunday. You know what I mean? There
Right.
prelim on Friday or any of that. And in fact, a lot of events were even just one day. You know, I mean, if it wasn't the state shoot, a club would have it. So I'd work at one club on Saturday, and I might be at another club on Sunday with my 5 stand.
Mm.
And so that
Mhm.
was kind of the model back then. We did a lot of travel, but again, it was in state primarily. And so as we expanded and started doing these bigger events, and the travel time started to tie into it and everything, driving to Indiana and Ohio and all those places.
Right.
The demand on his time got to be greater. And so basically his boss came and said, you have to decide, either you're going to do your own business or you're going to be a banker, you know what I mean? And so in 97, then he decided to stay with the banking. And so that's about the time, I guess, we took over. We bought out his system, and Roberta started traveling with me then. And we hired, I think shortly after that, by 98, we had our first employees as well. And so that's kind of how we took over then and just started expanding. Like each year we were adding more machines and capacity and stuff. So
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, nowadays, is your Top Gun at multiple events at the same time? Or
there
is
is,
this,
no,
yeah.
we do. We have two trailers. So my son Owen runs the second trailer. And so he's got 42 traps on his trailer. I've got 44 on mine. And so we're basically two events each week. Sometimes we're at the same place. It happens this week at the regional. We've got both trailers here. And so some of the events are big enough down in Florida too, like the Jack Links Cup. There's a number of them where we're both at the same place, but primarily we're two different places. And then each trailer is set up to do one of the big show make or breaks. We call it the show field, that's got the video boards and sound and CO2 jets and all the stuff on it. And then we're capable of actually doing two make or breaks out of a trailer. So one show field and one make or break field that still has the cubes and all that, but doesn't have video and sound. And
Yeah.
then the rest of the machines get rented out. The club uses them wherever, you know what I mean? Whatever
Hmm.
course or FITAS or whatever they decide to put them on at that event. That's kind of the model now. So primarily we do make a break. We still do a little bit of five stand. In fact, the Ohio State, the Wisconsin State, both last week we were at those events and ran a five stand at them.
Okay.
But in general, we've done less of that and gotten away from part of the challenge with, if you're running 2 or 3 or 4 games, is the employees and all of that stuff. You know what I mean? And so that got to be more of a challenge, or a headache, maybe is a better word to describe it.
Yes.
So we've got it down to where it's my son and I, and we each have one person with us. And so since COVID, I guess it's been two of Owen's friends. One worked with me and one worked with him. And then Joe Langer, that was with me the past 3 years, he took another job back home this year, coming into this year. And then I've had Ella step in to fill the gap anyways. So she worked with me this summer. And then Jason Eustace works with my son Owen. They're good friends anyway. So Jason and Owen are primarily together. And then if there's breaks in the schedule or whatever, typically Jason will join me if that's possible, depending on the logistics and stuff. He'll come along to where I'm at as well. So we all kind of work
Yeah.
together and just kind of plan the schedule accordingly. But basically it takes two of us to do the make a break anymore with the volume and stuff. It's if we've got one person to kind of handle the money and the sign up, and then somebody to run the game steady to get people through, is kind of the best way. And then when it comes to doing the show on Saturday night, it takes two of us to run that. Somebody's got to do the sound and video board stuff, and then of course I'm running the game and doing the announcing and stuff. So it's a team effort to get that pulled off.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were telling me the story, that's exactly what I was thinking, was how hard it must be to get employees that can travel like that and be gone that long.
Yep. Yeah. And then obviously my son too, having traveled all that time, they realize you're giving stuff up too. I mean, for the most part, our entire summer is this. And so I know that Jason right now is having bass fishing withdrawals. You know what I mean? Every day he
Yeah.
reminds me that, that as he sees a lake or a pond or something, that he should be out there instead of on the make or break field.
Shoot.
But so like I say, there's obviously you give up a lot of stuff. I mean, we run a pretty busy schedule. Honestly, we kick off the Florida events down there at Blackjack. It's kind of the kickoff of the season, and it's steady through that Florida chain. And then we're kind of probably 50% in the spring months. You know what I mean? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
working down south, southeast, Louisiana, Texas, wherever down through, I'd say up and until May. And then once May hits, then it's pretty much steady for us all the way till about the end of October. So it's
Wow.
it's it's a lot of travel. The run I'm on right now, I started with the Shooters Championship. That last week of May is when I left Minnesota, and I've not been back since. So however many weeks that's been, it's been a long, and we've
Gee.
been a lot of places. We were down in the southeast at first, in Georgia, Carolinas, Florida. I was in Louisiana and Texas, and then we were up in Canada for the Canadian Open, up at the Oshawa Clay and Target Club. over 4th of July weekend, and then back down to the Cardinal Center for the SCTP National Championship. So we had 2 weeks there. That one always kind of knocks the wind out of me. It's 11 days that we end up throwing targets there, and it's
Oh my
it's
God.
busy, it's big, it's busy, and just 11 days is just it's kind of a grind.
And what are your hours each day?
I kind of all of them. You know what I mean? All of the hours. We start in the morning. Usually we're open by 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit before. And depending on their schedule at the event, like they've got some ceremonies. Some of the evenings we have to close earlier. But if they don't make us close, we've literally got people who will shoot right until it's too dark to see the targets. 9:30, quarter to 10, something like that.
Those are long days.
Those are long days. And then by the time you load machines and get everything ready for tomorrow and then get back and eat something and get a shower, and yeah, it's short nights and long days. So that one's always tough to recover from. But otherwise, and
Yeah.
just in general, the events, before the economy crashed with Obama there right away just before he took office, kind of that 2008, the events where they starting on Wednesdays already, you know what I mean? Or even some stuff on
Right.
Tuesday, it makes it tough for any of the guys that travel like we do. You know what I mean? By the time you get out of a club on Sunday night, and then depending on where you're going, travel can be a few hours to oftentimes, over 12. For me, I've got to run a commercial logbook and everything, just as though I were driving a semi. I have all the same rules
Okay.
and paperwork and regulations and way stops. All that stuff applies to us. And so
Oh,
basically, we're professional truck drivers when we're on the road and have to follow
right.
those rules. And so 11-hour drive time, and then it's a mandatory 10 hours off. So depending on where you're going, a lot of times it can be tough, especially those drives that are 13, 14 hours, you know what I mean? And you're within two or three and you got to take 10 hours off,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then to get there and get everything set up, and like at this event too, have a Wednesday start. So I got out of Hillendale up by Cleveland on Monday morning. It was 10:30 by the time I had the trailer loaded Sunday night, and so got up at 6:30 in the morning, got ready, got hooked up, and got going. And then we got in here in Wisconsin. I want to say we got to the club and dropped the trailer. It was about 10:30 Central Time that night. So and then up the next morning and get it all in place and get it all going. So we were running yesterday morning at 8,
Golly.
but
Well, being that I'm a mental trainer and all, like, how do you take care of yourself? How do you find some balance?
I don't know that I'm that good at that, Dawn. I'd have to
Yeah.
confess that I struggle with that. I know for me, part of it, I suppose, is the love of the game. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
feel that first off, I'm a Christian, so I believe wholeheartedly in God and Jesus Christ is my personal savior, and that
Mhm.
there's a purpose, that God created us, each and every one of us, and that he has a purpose for each and every one of us. And I truly believe that I'm living my purpose. You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
love of shells and targets and throwing targets and begging people to shoot, I don't think was an accident. You know what I mean? I
Right.
think it was a calling. So I'm living out that calling. And so my son isn't quite as passionate about it as I am. You know what I mean? To him, it's more of a job than it is. He
Right.
enjoys it. I wouldn't say that he doesn't enjoy it. He enjoys what he does as well, but it's tougher on him, the driving, you know what I mean? I think he sees it as more of a sacrifice probably than I do. You know what I mean? And for me, I'll be frank about it. I've for a long time been living the dream of seeing this be bigger. Anybody that's out there playing the game, watching us, they've seen the changes. You know what I mean? In the game of make or break itself, all the stuff that we've added, the bringing it to a show level.
Yeah.
We had somebody in the professional sports world at the event at the SCTP Nationals for the team event. We do a team event both in the collegiate and in the SCTP stuff, and so she took in the show on Thursday night when we had the teams go head to head, and was just super impressed with how far we'd brought it. The last she'd seen it, I think we did the U.S. Open whenever that was in Mississippi at Tunica. We were working with her a little bit at that time, and she saw where it was then, and basically, we've been chasing a bunch of other avenues between then and now, and through some potential investors, they brought her back in to take a look at this again, and so that was just 3 weeks ago or whatever. Anyway, she was super excited about how far we brought it and just the potential. When you look at the number of people that enjoy recreational shooting, there's more shooters than there are golfers. There's more shooters in Canada than
Oh,
hockey players. You know what I mean? When you really look at the numbers, you can't help but
Wow.
scratch your head and say, why don't we have a professional league? When you see what they've
Yeah.
done, Raymond likes to talk about darts, the professional darts league in England. You know what I mean?
Right.
And how many $1 million the players are making and signing deals for, and
So
the
true.
industry of darts is minuscule compared to the shooting industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the overall
Something.
revenue and stuff. I mean, and the number of people involved in darts is tiny compared to the shooting industry. So, like I say, given the numbers and all of that, I mean, it's just there's a lot of reasons I would say that it's been as difficult as it has, and that things are as fractured as they are. but
What do you
but
think
that's
is
been the
the
goal.
primary reason? And I appreciate that you've created a show and it's entertaining because that's a big part of what will keep somebody watching, right?
Right.
And
That's
I'm
right.
just suspicious myself if it's how challenging it is to get it on camera, like the break and the target flying. What do you
So I
think?
see. I don't think it's a challenge. What my experience has led me to believe that it's all about money. It's all about how
Okay.
much money you can get behind it. I mean, imagine if we were out golfing, we'd be saying the same thing. If we didn't now
Hmm.
see them track the balls with the cameras on TV, right? If we'd never seen that happen, if you and I were just out and enjoying golf and saying about how cool it'd be to have this on TV, we'd both say, yeah, but how would they ever see the ball on TV, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with demand and sponsorship comes dollars, and with those dollars, they can apply technology that gets them to those points, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I believe the exact same way, honestly. It's just a matter of there being enough interest. So initially, to find the investors that want to put up the money to get the thing off the ground and start to grow it. And then I think given success, if our plan is good, you know what I mean, if we make the right steps and given success, more dollars will come into it. I don't see the model being much different than a lot of other sports, quite frankly.
Right.
It's just a matter of breaking the ice and getting a foothold and getting that started. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the National Shooting Sports Foundation, in particular, has added a ton of opportunity to this. I mean, and so this is my 32nd season of throwing targets, and I remember starting in the late 90s, and kids coming out to shoot was not a common thing. You know what I mean? Like I remember at
Right.
one point kind of dreaming about how could we get this into school? You know what I mean? How could we get this to be a,
Right.
a sport in school? And just thinking about it being near impossible, and the fact that I mean, NSSF kicked that off and started that whole program, and the success they've had. I've been a part of the SCTP Nationals for I don't even know, a bunch of years back when it was in Sparta yet, the national championship, we got involved with it. But to see
Right.
the success of that, now we work with the ACUI national championship down at San Antonio there at the gun club. We've been in that for the last 2 years. But to see the success of those kids programs and see the kids shoot through high school and then see a lot of the same kids shooting in college and then see a percentage of them at the tournaments, right? At these regionals and different state
Right.
shoots. And so just to see the success and the popularity with which that's been embraced, I think has laid the groundwork, honestly, for success. You know, just the number of parents that have kids in the shooting sports or had kids in the shooting sports, the number of people that just enjoy the shooting sports. When you look at the numbers that NSSF puts out as far as participation across the states in any of the shooting activities, we've just got a huge potential fan base out there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people regardless of what the media might want you to believe, that love
Mm.
guns, know guns are safe when they're handled properly,
Mm.
and that there's a ton of
Mm-hmm.
recreation that can be had, whether you're the one shooting or whether you're the one watching the shooting entertainment, right?
Right.
I feel like they've really kind of opened up the opportunity and laid the groundwork for this to become a success. I don't know that in the 90s, the late 90s and stuff, this could have happened even, but I feel
Yeah.
like that things are right. The opportunity is there. And now, I mean, our biggest challenge is just trying to find the money to get it going. We're working with a few different potential investors right now, and we have been on different projects for since 2005. I've been actively involved in putting even my own money behind projects. We did a pilot in Branson, Missouri. We hired one of the top 5 sound and light crews, Production Design International. They came out of Toronto and lit and helped produce that pilot that we were hoping to get on TV, and kind of learned a ton. That still, there's a lot of that footage. There's some of it is on our makeabreak.com website if people want to go see it. But we
Okay.
never did produce that pilot through a series of events. It never got produced. There's a ton of people that would have no idea how far we'd come back. There's people talking about shooting at at the black light targets at some of these clubs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We did that back in 2005 for that pilot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've done a ton of stuff. I guess just been ahead of our time, so to speak. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, for
but have been
sure.
actively involved in the promotion and production of trying to get this to be something bigger. I always say that that you got the Brandon Powells and Blaze Whiteheads, and I mean I shouldn't name anybody probably because there's a ton of names that I'm not
I know,
naming, right?
right?
That
I'm
that,
like,
that are
oh,
deserving, right?
there are. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, and so yeah, any of you that I'm leaving out, it's not personal. There's a ton of people that are great, just great athletes in the sport. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
enjoy seeing them come and participate. They're a ton of fun to watch play the game. Like when we do the Top Gun shootout on Saturday night,
Right.
there's always some new people in there, the up and comers, and then there's just some of the standards that are just, I mean, they're contenders week in and week out. And so it's a lot of fun to watch them compete. And I would love to see those guys and gals be able to make a living at this, a real living. You know what I mean? Like their
For
talent,
sure.
the talent that they possess and exhibit when they're in those shootouts. I think a lot of people in this world would love to watch. And
Yes.
it'd be fun. Just like I'm passionate about doing this and taking it to the next level, they're passionate about being great competitors in the shooting sports, right? And
Right.
like I say, it's just
Yes.
for all the travel and all the hard work that it is. Any of us that are on
Hmm.
the inside know that there's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of hard work. And so to see those guys
A
and
lot of
gals
sacrifice. Hmm.
absolutely have the
Hmm.
opportunity to make a really good living at it and just see, I just feel like there's a ton of people that would enjoy watching it. You know what I mean? That the
Right.
entertainment value is huge for those. The event, again, back to that team event at SCTP Nationals here this last year or a few weeks ago, and just the competitiveness. So it was the top 8 teams basically, and a team consists of 5 players. So the teams had to qualify throughout the week, and so your team, like so, the Forest City Juniors, for example, they might have 50 kids on that team. Other teams, only have 5 kids, can barely make the cut to get, to have 5 kids to even qualify. It's based on score. So like for the Forest City Juniors, it was the 5 kids who shot the highest score combined. So they played a game of make or break, just trying to shoot a high score. And then the top 5, based on their score combined, is how they got their team entered. All right. So 8 teams entered
Okay.
that way. There were a bunch of teams that tried to qualify, but the top 8 teams based on score get to compete in this. And so then we seeded them 1 against 8, 2 against 7, etc. And so what happens? It's a best of 3 match, and so the coaches are involved in the way we're doing it. We want the coach to be an active part of the game, and so we've got 2 stages set up, and each team, the coach they pick 2 of their 5 players to play the first game. And so they go
Uh-huh.
head to head in game 1, and then game 2, they switch sides, and the coaches pick 2 of the remaining 3 players, right, and play game 2.
Mhm.
And if it's tied at that point, which many of the matches are, a game to a game, in the third game, they take their 5th player, and then they can pick any one of the previous 4 that they had shoot. And so that constitutes their team for the third game. And so the matches were fabulous to see those young kids, men and women, up there and just the pressure. So obviously, anybody that's seen the show, the music is loud, right? When they're shooting kind of the 2 through the 5 target, the music's blaring and the crowd's into it. They're cheering and stuff when they're hitting targets. And some of those, I don't remember which team. I just remember there being one young kid, a boy, I guess you'd call him even. I don't know that he could have been 10 or 11, maybe had made it on one of the teams. And so it all came down to him. I mean, he had to break the 7
Oh
target for
my
their team to
gosh.
win this, and he was literally trembling. You know what I mean? The coach put
Oh,
his
poor
hands
little
on the
bugger.
on the kid's shoulders, and he's like, "Son, I believe in you. You got you know what I mean?" And he said, "Just relax. You got it."
Oh,
Anyways,
I love it.
but all those kids, and it was both guys and gals on the teams, just the pressure, the concentration on their faces. Obviously, I'm standing right between the 2 stages where I am to announce and play the role that I play. And so to see the pressure, to see the competitive spirit, I mean it's I'm telling you, there's a ton of people that would love to actually watch that, I believe, on TV, because it's a
Right.
fast-paced game, you know what I mean? And the competition is incredible. The athletes are incredible, just their abilities. The targets that we set for that shoot-off would be no different than anything we do for like this regional, in fact, in Wisconsin. And so, I mean, it wasn't easy by any stretch, but very visible. I set the targets so that
Hmm.
the audience can see them well and the players can see them. and the scores were great. I mean, we had a couple of matches where they were tied and went into the 1-7 shoot off. You know what I mean? And so it was just like I say, it's scripted for TV. It really is. It's just a matter of getting it there. This is the next step.
I could see that. I can see where you're heading. I can see how you got to where you are now. And there's no doubt that the passion is alive and well in you and kicking. And in that, golly, I can only imagine where things will be in 5 years.
Yes, I hope, Don. That's always the goal. It's been, it seems every year it seems like there's opportunities, or it feels like you're on the verge of the next big break. And obviously it's changed a bunch over the years, but it's also been disheartening to see how long it's taken. You know what I mean? Like, think about that
Yes.
back in 2005. So if my math is any good, 20 years ago, we were doing that pilot for TV with the hopes of breaking through then.
Yes.
And so I was going to say, so then probably 10 years later was it when Scott did the professional clay target league? The name escapes me right now, but right, he had the
PSCA.
PSCA, right? So 10 years
Uh-huh.
later, the PSCA comes along and they try again. You know what I mean? And it's just so, like you say, it's a challenge. Every time you think you're close, and so far we've just keep having some sort of setback, but at the same time learning too. You know what I mean? Like, we've grown a ton. The game has changed a lot as far as
Yes,
the production value and just you know what I mean, what we've got there and stuff too, for sponsors and participants alike. So we're getting better. We're getting
for
closer.
sure.
I just like I say, my hope is always that the break is right around the corner.
The break. Yes. I can
Yeah.
totally understand that. Well, this is super informative, and we are about out of time already. Is yeah,
Yeah,
so
time
such a
flies.
fascinating story, and I love
Yes.
that you're living your dream and doing something that you love and are passionate about it, and that momentum for sure is
Yeah.
going to go somewhere, and everybody will be able to watch not only what you've created but what's about to come out of it. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah,
Um,
that to me, and I guess they're just that the hope that so many people will be able to participate in it. So many of the people that are playing the game now, you know what I mean, that are involved in
right.
our sport, that it isn't something that I'll just be successful in, or a handful of people, but that our industry can be successful in, is the way I see it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Whether
for
that's the
sure. I get it.
manufacturers or whoever, right?
Yeah.
But all of us can be part of it.
I mean,
That'd be
I'm thinking
fabulous.
about it as a club owner. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah,
Y- y-
I'm with you. That'd be awesome if this got on TV, and and the effect that would have on raising awareness. That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do want to tell folks, I do offer free tips and such on social media, whether you go to Amelia Shotgun Sports or the Don Grant Mental Training on any of the social media platforms. And there's also some free goodies and opt-ins for any of my 3 businesses at dongrant.com/free. So you can get free access to some mental training stuff. I do write articles in Clay Shooting USA, Shot Shooting USA, Wing and Clay Life, and Lady Outdoor Lifestyle magazines. Check those great magazines out. And my shotgun club is in Northeast Florida. Amelia Shotgun Sports, we do have monthly NSCA events and targets set by the infamous Joe Skull. So definitely come see us, especially if you're driving down I-95. So Ed, please share your contact info, website, and anything else you'd like to tell
So
people about.
Yeah, so the best way to contact me really would just be through the makeabreak.com website. If you go on that website, you can follow us, all the Make a Break stuff on if you're Instagram or Facebook, any of that stuff. You can find the links if you go to makeabreak.com. There's some great footage on makeabreak.com of that original 2005 event. It tells you about the game, how to play the game, if you've got questions about that. But that would be a great
Nice.
way to contact me is through that website. Appreciate
Beautiful.
the
Well,
opportunity, Don.
yeah, and I look forward to seeing your family out there and watching where all this is going to go. I'm excited for you and all you've already accomplished.
Well,
So
thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
being a guest.
It
For
was my
sure.
pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Clay Mastermind with Dawn Grant. Mental excellence and industry insights. Brought to you by the Clay Lab. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and informative. Remember, mastering the mental game is key to unlocking your full potential on the course. And through our conversations with industry leaders, we aim to provide you with valuable insights into the world of clay shooting. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share it. For more insights, training tips, and updates on upcoming events, Dawn Grant and Amelia Shotgun Sports are on all social media platforms. Go to dawngrant.com and come shoot at Amelia Shotgun Sports. Stay focused, stay driven, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time, Dawn wishes you success and happiness on your journey to peak performance and industry mastery.